Lock it, fill it, curl it, find it, view it, code it, jump and lock it, surf it, scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, twitch, update it.
So I will get started by asking Christian to kind of share with us his story where you successfully used Android in your small business.
Back in 2009, early 2009, late 2008, as we all know, our economy pretty much imploded. I had a successful wholesale business selling dry ice to medical labs, which I still do. But I saw my very nice salary just go away. Being newly married, having a little one on the way, and my wife recently got laid off when she was 5 months pregnant. Anybody that's a parent on this panel can pretty much understand. I was in full freak out mode. So I took the last of our savings and I bought a 10-year-old truck. Then the Nexus One comes out, and so I purchased the Nexus One and started playing around with it. And the more I played with Android, the more it allowed me to discover all the other Google properties. And that started a process in my brain of thinking how I can integrate these properties that Google, and specifically to Android, on how I could grow my business. I discovered Google Apps and how to be able to create a bigger presence or project a bigger presence to clients by having your own domain. Things are really easy to use. Well, once you get started down the Google Apps route and you start adding people into that organization, then you discover, latitude. You discover the power of maps. You discover, other apps that are out there available that can help you grow a small business. 6 years ago, we were paying thousands of dollars just to do what we're able to do now, to Cisco. And the same thing goes in logistics. For what Google Maps and Latitude have done in my business is circumvent, pretty much about $5,000 worth of equipment per truck. Just the simple fact that you can arm a driver, a team member, with a $60, $70 Android device, and from that device, they can provide proof of delivery, they can be tracked, they can receive information real time, and as long as they're connected, the customer is connected on the other end. So in the past 3 years, we have grown from to $500,000 in sales on this company, all with no debt, bootstrapped all the way. That was one of my self-imposed conditions. After what happened in 2009, I swore off debt. So if I couldn't do it with cash and I couldn't cash flow it, I wouldn't do it. We could grow bigger, faster, but that would indicate financing, outside financing, and that's something I'm not willing to do.
Okay.
Today we are, as far as technology, fully integrated into Android, fully committed to the Google properties. I'm starting to install cloud printers in every truck. That way, the drivers have access to paper in case they need it.
But what apps have really been kind of game changers, or that you found that maybe even like third-party apps that aren't Google made that were really helpful?
Third-party apps, any barcode scanner. We're creating our own QR codes to track deliveries. Another one is CAM card scanner or CAM document scanner. That's what we use to scan documents and get it back in real time to customers. Smarter, which is a contact relational database manager. It gives the drivers and the team members a good snapshot of who they're dealing with. So not only the person that you are interacting with via email or a phone call, but also how they're related to everybody else within your organization and within outside organizations.
Along those lines, do you have a kind of a wish list or any kind of specific areas that an app would be helpful that there isn't anything yet?
Largo is a back-end provider of logistics software.
Okay.
But the problem with their software is that it's not a standalone product. You have to buy the backend, their backend software suite to be able to access this. My vision would be to have a standalone app with maybe a cloud backend for detailed reporting and things of that nature, instead of having to access 5 or 6 different apps. Just integrate into this one app and have different modules within the app.
So along those lines, then we'll kind of switch things over to Andrew. Andrew May, if you guys don't know him, he is a Android app developer here in Knoxville. Andrew, what I wanted to ask you about is let's talk about creating an app. What is the app creation process like?
The process itself is actually very long and drawn out. If you're a smaller developer, you can be a little more agile and create things quickly. Littlest development time for a very large project with a very agile team, you're talking 3 months. But that's the shortest turnaround you're going to talk, and they're working 24/7. There's a lot that goes into these apps that people just aren't aware. The prices can get somewhat outrageous. For a very simple app, you're talking about $5,000, and it just keeps going up from there.
Right.
A good developer is going to cost you $85 an hour minimum.
When did you start getting into Android programming?
Yeah, I was a .NET developer for Anderson News, a local company in Knoxville that went under around 2008, 2009. The company itself started going under. I had some foreknowledge on that, so I started up my own consulting company. My first consulting gig was another mobile device, and it just kept snowballing from there. I got some other contracts, and it led to iOS development, and iOS led to Android development. Android I prefer it. I like it. I like the openness of Android. That said, every platform has its pros and cons.
So let's say I want to get into Android app. What should I learn first? What languages? What do I need to buy?
The nice thing if you're going into Android is you can start anywhere. In the aspect of hardware-wise, you can develop using a MacBook, a PC, anything. You can use Ubuntu, OS 10, Windows, it doesn't matter. You can use any IDE development you want to use. Google prefers you to use Eclipse and supports Eclipse, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're limited to that. You have a wide variety of hardware devices to test on, plus the emulators. Now, most developers will complain that emulators are horrible and slow, and I will confirm that, but it still gives you a groundwork and someplace to start. And you also have different options. You've got Appcelerator and all of those sorts of things. As a developer, I generally do not recommend them. There can be some issues, and you never know when iOS might decide, hey, you built something once for an Appcelerator to work both on Android and iOS, and hey, Windows Mobile Phone 7. You never know when their terms are going to change, and they're going to rip that out.
Yep.
When you develop natively, they're not going to toss you out.
Well, the last thing that I wanted to talk to both you guys about, because you both keep up with Google products and just the app marketplace in general, at what point does that list become unmanageable, or does it? Can it grow forever?
It depends how you curate the market. There's a lot of junk that goes in. Any market there is. I think Google's doing a great job of curating the market there. There's a lot of app overload. But that said, specifically in the Android market, there's a lot of holes to be filled. It's because it really is hard to develop for Android in certain aspects, and that's due to fragmentation. I don't hear a lot of developers using one code base to write for both phone and tablets, and that's a big mistake.
Yeah.
And they're making it hard on themselves, they're making development harder, and so therefore these great apps are just not showing up on here. And part of it, at least one of my theories, is Java. You're not really tapping a great market there. iOS had, of course, Objective-C, and they had that market with OS 10 already Objective-C, that the people knew the language, so you had a great market to tap into.
Christian, what do you think about, you probably go to the app marketplace pretty often. How cluttered is it to you, and does that help or hurt your search for new things?
You're always going to have discovery issues once the market hits a certain threshold of apps. Google is getting really good with being able to filter out certain apps. As far as searching itself within the market, they have a long way to go. But as far as discovery, of course, the really popular good apps, those tend to rise to the top and easy to discover. You just have to read a lot. You have to be on top of the technology, blogs and the news to kind of discover those apps. And to be honest with you, most of the useful apps that I use every day or that I use within my business have been discovered that way.
How do you promote an app in a marketplace this big? If you're building for consumers, how do you get that out into the marketplace and actually make people pay attention to it?
I can answer from my perspective. As a developer, generally, I'm not worried about that. I'm to write some code.
Right. Have you seen anything that does or doesn't work? You've probably seen what your clients have done after you've built an app. You kept up with it a little. Has there been anything that stood out as bad or good?
The only thing bad I've ever seen a client do is get a minimal viable product out and then stop paying me to maintain it and not hiring anyone else to maintain it.
I will have to agree with Andrew in that sense that the worst thing that you can do is abandon the app. If you're going to abandon the app, might as well take it off the market.
Say you might not have ever paid for it.
Exactly, or releasing an app before the core functionality is fleshed out. Downloading an app for the first time from the market is like going on your first date. That first impression of the app, that is the only time you're going to get somebody that's not into technology, that is just looking for a solution. That's the only chance you're going to get to make an impression. If you show up to your date, without having a bath for a week, forget it. You're not going on another date. It's the same thing with apps. If your app doesn't do what your description says it's going to do, then why should I give you another chance?
Who had any questions for either of these guys relating to Android apps or maybe has their own input for some of the questions I asked them?
Yeah, I kind of dropped into it. I wanted to develop for smartphones, looked at available options. Android is really the only option if you just want to drop into it.
You're right. You're restricted with iOS. You have to have a MacBook. You have to have an iOS device. It's a high cost.
To
develop for iOS. That said, there's the big payoffs if you do it.
If you like Objective-C, that's also a big if.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Most people, it's hard for them to wrap their heads around, and they get really frustrated. I've got a question for you, if you don't mind. Again, just because I'm an Android developer and I love talking about it. Are you using fragments in your current programming? Are you using that at all, or have you?
Not yet.
Not yet. I urge you to look at it, because the backwards compatibility allows you to build something, and it's a very good backwards compatibility package. By using the fragments, you're now enabling yourself to build something for the tablets as well as phones. If you set this up correctly and kind of used an activity to shoehorn either into a fragment or into a fragment with multiple fragments, the ability to maintain your code efficiently, rather than having a code base for tablets and then a code base for your phones, which I find many large developers are doing as well.
The main issue is with the user interface because of the differing resolutions. That's the only major issue I've found, that you need different layouts for tablets with a larger screen.
You of course use your resources folder there and use your different layouts folders to structure that. And what you do, and what Google doesn't do a good job of evangelizing, is that you need to think about it as a web layout. When you're looking at your screens and designing your screens, think about it like a web page. And the reason being is the fragmentation between screen sizes. Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to warn, and I see a lot of developers doing this, is, and again, I keep saying it, and it's because you can't maintain your application if you have multiple APKs, and recently Google allowed this. I shouldn't say recently, I think it was at the last I.O. they announced it, and I think they followed through quickly, allowing you to target multiple APKs to certain devices, or rather one APK to multiple devices, so you can handle saying, okay, this device only runs this APK, this device only runs this APK. The
Okay,
problem with that
that's-
is, of course, you're maintaining multiple versions of your code.
We're getting very into heavy technical conversation that I think is
No way, but
I,
it's starting.
I think is less relevant to most people here. I know you guys could probably do this forever, but does anyone else have any more general questions?
I got a question for all the devs in the house. I want to do it. I'm so young too. I can still go to school. What do you recommend I do if I want to, start development?
Not as a developer, but as a business owner, I can tell you that you're essentially you're gonna be self-employed. So the best advice that I can give you to avoid financial commitments, don't get into debt. Don't be afraid to fail. Try. You'll learn more from your failures than your success. And this is a critical time for you to choose the path and direction that you want to go in.
I think what I'm trying to get at is, what do I learn?
Okay, if you're talking like you're gonna go either back to college or start fresh from college, let me give you pointers. They don't teach you much of the business world. So what Christian was saying right there, very, very important. And the debt thing is incredibly important. Pick up books like The Pragmatic Programmer, Code Complete, because the concept behind object-oriented programming is key. Syntax is just syntax. And hey, you can be a lazy programmer sometimes. I'll admit, sometimes I don't remember the syntax everywhere, but hey, guess what? Between IntelliSense and Eclipse having it, Visual Studio having it, if I completely forget, I can look it up. And hey, that's what Google's for there too. But if you understand the basic concepts of object-oriented programming, you're set. Now, if you want to go, start fresh with school, they'll gloss over those things and kind of teach you some languages, and they won't prepare you for the real life. And they kind of leave you hanging. So Android is a real good one to start programming mobile applications with. Pick up a Java book. Go to Amazon, find what has the best reviews for novices. Pick that up, but then also pick up, like my recommendations, the Pragmatic Programmer, the Code Complete, things like that, because they'll give you better insights into programming that those books themselves won't teach you.
Yeah.
And I think another thing is that most people forget these days, traditional school, is that there's always the apprenticeship. I will find a developer in your area and just start doing things around for them if they let you hang out. Most of the things that I learned for business, I didn't learn at school.
One thing to kind of add, if you don't already visit one, I would suggest checking out a local user group. It's kind of good to, just socialize, kind of like a Google Hangout, but in person, and kind of just talk with other developers. That's one good way to find maybe a mentor. Another thing is if you're looking to take formal classes and kind of get that core kind of information out of the way, just go to like iTunes and check out iTunes U. So you got like Stanford classes and MIT classes on programming and just kind of like the core concepts, and that's a way that you can kind of walk through some of the example projects in those classes without having to put down money for an official degree.
Yeah. I think that could be a whole nother topic on, computer programming. It changes so much, and the degrees don't teach you. You guys can probably speak to this more than me, but the degrees don't teach you what you need to know to actually do it on your own, develop on your own.
I would agree. I still keep up with some friends out west who decided to continue their education, and it's absolutely useless what they're learning.
So, for somebody that wants to learn programming, let's say you start learning and you get on your own and you're doing pretty good, you've got a good background, you make your first little app just to try it, something like that. Where's your certification? At what point can you go to a company and say, I'm qualified for this job?
I started my own company.
Right.
I've done a lot of projects. If you look at my website, the personal website, I've got my resume there.
Yeah.
And I've big list of projects I worked on, examples to show, and yeah, that's basically what I've got to show as my certification.
Yeah.
That is one excellent way. Ultimately, every single company has different different methods of what they consider, certification for, app development. There's nothing really set in stone out there other than just having experience.
You guys have any final words?
Yeah, Andrew, we need to link up to see if we can develop something and make a ton of money doing it.
Wow, it sounds like fun. I'm into.
All right, so we got new connections made all over the place. Andrew, you got any final words?
Anyone who wants to talk to me, I'm always open. Email me, talk to me anytime you want. If you want my Skype information, drop me a line and I'll send you my Skype so you can always buzz me anytime you want.